Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Beer Rating with Sean Connors. As you can see, the beer I have today is Saison Dupont, and this is my third beer for Belgium Beer Month, February. And this, like a previous beer, this is bottle fermented, so when I open it, it should be pretty cloudy. So bottle fermented means it goes through the regular fermentation, and then just before they bottle it, they put a little bit of yeast in there, and as a result, it continues to ferment in the bottle, which normally results in a bit of a cloudy beer. You might have a little bit of sediment in the bottom, and normally that's just dead yeast cells. A lot of people, when they pour it, they'll actually leave the last inch or so, which has mostly the dead yeast, and other people, they'll add it straight to the beer, and just has extra flavor, extra taste. For me, I normally just pour it all straight in there. Let's see what we can get about this beer. Belgium Dupont is the name of the brewery. 6.5% alcohol. And this is, once again, this is one of the beers that my friend Mike gave me, and he brought this back from Belgium, so there's very little English on the label. Let's see if there's anything I can get here. No, not really. Basically it says long time storage in the cellar, bottle fermented, and then the ingredients. So I'll pour it up and we'll go from there. And normally, since it's the second fermentation in the bottle, I find a lot of the beers that have the second fermentation are a lot more gassier, a lot more carbonization. Oh, I gotta give my glass a quick cold water rinse, as per usual. I'm using my tulip glass. That's pretty well the standard beer glass for a lot of Belgian beers. Like I said, a lot of people will leave the last little bit. Myself, I prefer just to pour it in there. Alright, so what do we have here? It definitely has cloud, and I can actually see the yeast. I'm going to zoom in here, see if you can see it. I'm not sure if you will or not, but it's fairly cloudy. If you look closely, you can actually see the yeast. Not sure how well you can see that, but if you can't, you have to take my word for it. You can definitely see the yeast in it. And this is more so than any other bottle fermented beer I've had, to tell you the truth. Hey. Kind of a citrus aroma. Give it a taste. So I said 6.5% alcohol. I find the higher alcohol beer is actually higher than this. For me, I can almost taste like the increased alcohol. I'm getting that a little bit with this, which I didn't really expect, being 6.5. It's high, but it's not crazy high. And a little bit about this beer. It's the style of beer. It's considered a farmhouse ale. As I said, it's bottle fermented. The brewery is Belgium Dupont, so I think it's just Brewery Dupont. It's a farmhouse brewery. It's in the French-speaking area of Belgium region, so I believe that's southern Belgium, correct me if I'm wrong. The site of the brewery, they have actually been brewing beer there since 1844 in one form or another. Not that brewery, but different breweries. My understanding, in 1920, Albert Dupont actually purchased the brewery that was there, and the reason he did that, his son was planning on moving to Canada to become a farmer, and he wanted to keep his son in the area in Belgium, so he bought the brewery, and I believe I don't know if his son did say or not, but that's the reason he bought it. And then the Rosier family, they bought this brewery in the 1950s, and they've been running it ever since. This beer, Saison Dupont, is considered the flagship beer of the brewery. Originally it was called Saison Ville Provisional. It was considered a provisional beer, which most Saisons were. And this, they say, and this is a quote, it's the quintessential version of the Saison style. So they consider this the go-to beer as far as Saison beers go, which I find kind of interesting. I'll get to that in a minute. So they say this beer is a quintessential. This is, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to say it. Basically, if you're going to produce a Saison, this is one you're going to try to imitate, if that makes any sense. Which I find kind of odd, because Saison is a French word for season, and as I said, it's a farmhouse ale. My understanding is that farmhouse ales originally, they were beers that were brewed in the winter months on the farms. The winter months were common for brewing beer because it was cooler, and in the hotter months, the brew would go bad quicker. So they were more inclined to do it in the colder months, so they could lager the beers. As well, because it was the winter, the full-time hands, farm hands, didn't have a lot to do in the winter, so this gave them something to do. So that's another reason. As well, they wanted the spent grain that was used for brewing, that was valued as a food for the livestock, so that was another reason. And also, in the summer months, they had a lot of migrant workers, so they needed something for those guys to drink, so that would be the Saison. Now, with that being said, as a farmhouse ale, there was no specific recipe or format to use. Every farm was a little bit different. A lot of times it basically depended on what they had on hand. Did they have extra barley? Did they have extra rye? Did they have extra oats? Basically they would use whatever they had on hand. And the brew wasn't being brewed for purchase. It was for the farm hands only. So it wasn't as if they had to ensure that every batch was the same as the last batch. Basically, they make do with what they got, and as long as they got a good brew, they were happy. Now, nowadays, the Saison style, they say it's the beer should be dry. It normally has increased hop character, so you probably taste the hops. It's normally highly carbonated, that's because of second fermentation. Normally has a fruity taste to it, and this definitely has it. The average alcohol content for a Saison is normally between 5 and 8, so this fits in there perfectly, and it's usually fermented in the bottle. And as I said, this one, the Saison Dupont, is the go-to beer as far as Saison. This is the one that if you're going to brew a beer, you want to imitate this one as much as possible. As I said, they call it the quintessential version of a Saison style. Alright, so I got to give this one a rating, and as usual, my ratings are out of 5. 1 is a drain port, don't like it, can't finish it. A 2 is not a fan, but I won't waste it, so I'll finish it. A 3 is a good beer, a 4 is a very good beer, and a 5 is the best beer ever. So to give this one a rating, the Saison Dupont, I'm enjoying it. It's different, not a bad different, but it's different. It's not what we're used to in North America. In North America, we're overwhelmed with, basically lagers, and mostly it's mass-produced lagers. Now we do have a lot of craft brews that are, giving alternatives, but for the most part, lagers are North America. It's slowly changing, and the sooner the better. But all right, so for this rating, I think I'm comfortable giving this one a 3.5. That's between a good beer and a very good beer. So it's not a bad beer, I'm enjoying it. And there you go. So that's my rating for this week on the Saison Dupont. We have 1 week left in February, and I have 1 Belgian beer left for that. And that would be the Petrus Age Red. And I've done several Petrus beers, several reviews, but I haven't done the Age Red, so that's next week. So there you go, folks. 3.5 for the Saison Dupont. Until next brew, as always, enjoy responsibly. Cheers.